Alrighty, here we go. Alright, it is 9:20 on the 16th day of August, and as we celebrate the 1-year anniversary of this show, one of the show's biggest supporters hanging out with me because it's the third Wednesday of the month.
Already.
No one's got any red eyes today, swelled shut.
All good.
Nobody's dying because they overdosed on Sudafed PM, you know. We're here and we're ready to go. Lisa Webb, how are we doing on this Wednesday morning?
We're doing good. We're doing good. Thanks again for having us. And I tell you, it's hard to believe we're at fourth episode now. And congratulations on your year anniversary. That's great. Glad I could be a part of that celebration day.
Well, yeah. I mean, and it's because of business owners like yourself that really, you know, people think, oh, well, that's great, we have this. But it's because of your guys' support like yourself and being able to do it. So what better way to kick off the 1 year than to have a supporter of the show on and let's talk some real estate. Now, before I go into the full deep dive, disclaimer, Lisa Webb and I already had a pre-show that you guys have no idea about. So we're versed. We are ready to roll.
Yes. We get to talking, and before we know it, there's so much that we could cover. It's like, oh, wait a minute, we got to do the show.
That's why I need my own producer, because they can just hit record while we're going.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah. They missed out on some good content.
So right off the bat, before we do the deep dive into grants, because there's so many, and another disclaimer is, I'm going to be along for the ride for a lot of this because I'm learning too. And but one question that we did have was, have you personally had a deal just completely kind of disaparate at the closing table and turn into nothing?
I have not.
Okay.
However, that does happen, and we did talk about this a little bit, and that's the worst feeling in the world is to be at the closing table and have a hiccup.
Yeah.
A hiccup so severe that it causes something to fall apart. You can have people not have enough money that they need to bring to the table. That will be your big clue that it's not going to close.
Okay.
You will have, maybe you go and do the final walkthrough with your client and something was supposed to be repaired or the house was supposed to be cleaned out. And when you go to do the final walkthrough, the seller didn't do their job and now you're not accepting the house in its current condition, and so you're not going to close.
Have you, and now that actually brings up a great point, can you ask in part of your close, hey, I want this house spotless if I'm moving in?
So what people may not realize is part of the contract for the state of Illinois board contract, it does state in there that the home does need to be in technically broom swept condition.
Okay.
So it does state that, but again, that's in your fine print that a lot of times if you don't sit down and go through your contract with your agent, you're not going to have that pop out at you. I've had circumstances where sellers have left food in the fridge, have left trash lying around, and buyers have every right when they go to do that final walkthrough to go, no. Yeah. I am not going to accept the house in this condition. The sellers are aware that this should have been taken care of, and that can stall the closing.
Wow, that's fascinating.
They are not required to sign on that line. They can object to that closing at that time. So it's very important to have that communication with your seller up front.
Yeah.
If the seller's like, I'm not doing anything, then disclose it. Disclose it. Get in the house with the things in it. The way it sits, I do that on a lot of my as-is listings, to let the buyers know they're not cleaning nothing out. You're going to get it. Don't surprise them.
Yeah.
Be up front with it so they are aware. But that does happen. So, there, and then it goes back to our other show where we talked about the funding.
Oh, yes.
And that can delay the closing as well to where it does not fund. And then it's dead in the water if there's something wrong with title or something like that. That does happen.
Man. Well, and too, I mean, it's just so funny because we had a whole 35-minute conversation on closings, and the one thing I never even got out of this is how talk about a gut punch, at the closing table to have something happen.
Yeah.
Whew, you better know a good realtor.
Yeah, and it is. I mean, you've been there.
Yep.
You did the closing. There's butterflies all over. You could sell a house 1,000,000 times, be a buyer 1,000,000 times, but that day at closing is still can bring a little bit of nerves because you just never know. The unknown can happen, and just the craziest things sometimes come up. So it does happen. It is something that can take place. You need to know your steps if it does come into play, and know the action steps to take to resolve it as quickly as possible.
Wow.
But thanks for the question.
Yeah, I love it. Hey, you got any more? We got a lot to talk about today. We're talking about a lot of grants, and really, there's so many opportunities for folks that we really just don't know about.
Yeah.
And now, what's the best way to start this?
So welcome to the Third Street Realty radio show. No, just kidding. So what we wanted to, CJ and I wanted to really educate our listeners about the grants.
Yeah.
Now, CJ, he's in agreement with speaking about some of the stuff that he did. So CJ did do a grant, and he did the Madison County grant. And so I'm going to have him just sort of give a quick overview of what kind of butterflies and bells and whistles he had to accomplish with that grant. And what did you think?
Well, honestly, I thought the whole process was really smooth. I think for us, it was a scheduling issue, was making sure that the individual managing the grant was in the office and going back from vacation. But the guidelines were very clear. We need to have this 3 months of your, or maybe 2 years of my W-2 or something like that. Very open. And then whenever you get there and you have everything ready to go, it was pretty simple. I just walked in, we sat down, and and it was very clear, if you don't live in the house for the full 6 years, you have to live there 6 years. If you don't, there are penalties that you have to pay us back the grant.
Right.
But after 6, wipe the hands, you're good to go. And with the grant and the help of it, I was able to get a ridiculous amount knocked off of closing, to where technically I closed at $585.
Yeah.
But in reality, I really closed at 0, but we'll talk more about that later.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And so that's something to remember, that now grants, they do have some things that you have to guidelines. So this particular grant, you did have to go through an educational session.
Oh, that was.
You did have to do that.
Can I say so? It's not scary. It was a very easy educational segment.
Yeah, you had to, was it like 2 or 3 hours, if that, maybe?
They say it's 2 to 3 hours.
Yeah, but it goes pretty smoothly. It's just basically telling you what to look for in your house. A lot of times lenders would like to have the buyers do this before they get under contract, because they're going to give you some key questions that you need to ask your realtor. You were ahead of the game, so you already, took that step. But it's just basically for somebody brand new, buying a house, question and answers, what do we look for? But the Madison County grant also, though, has some stipulations that a house has to meet a certain criteria.
Yes.
And that's in place for a reason. That's in place to protect the lender and to protect the consumer, so they're not buying a house that's going to fall down the day after the day they signed on the dotted line. It needs to have safety issues accounted for and checked off in good standing. And that's very common for that.
Was that what we were talking about, where it was almost, if it was just a pass for city ordinance or the city code, it would have been a lot easier, but with this grant, it's a little bit more fine-tuned, correct?
Right. So you had, in your case, you had Alton occupancy.
That's what it was, yes.
That we had to do, which was totally separate than a home inspection, which was totally separate than the Madison County grant checkoff list. So the Madison County grant is a pass or fail on certain items: handrails, smoke detectors, CO2, electrical, things like that. That's a pass or a fail. Any fail has to be satisfied before the grant money can come to you. Right. It has to be made safe. And that's the key word that I want people to understand. It's not that they're being just picky about who they're giving money to. It's a safety concern.
Yep.
They want to make sure your house is safe for you or for a family that is moving in. There is a few things that I did highlight with the Madison County grant. There's some grants that you don't have to worry about a credit score. Madison County grant, there is a credit score involved that they look at. So you have to have a 620 credit score, which is very doable for today. You also have to, there's an income level that you have to meet. So it says here, a household that qualifies for the home buyer program, the total household must not exceed 80% of the median income. So it has a variety of household sizes and the income, and you need to meet that.
Yeah.
And so that's just sort of helps limit where these funds need to go. They need to be directed to the correct people because that's what they're out here for.
Right.
So,
it's not just because Jim that has a $100,000 job and has a kid or 2 kids and a wife and she's working and they make $200,000 a year. It's so they don't go and apply for this grant and take it away.
And that's taking away from families that are on the lower income level that can benefit from this. It's taking away from them. So that's what this is geared for, is to help certain family levels be able to buy a home and get into a safe home by using this grant program to help with appraisal fees, closing costs, title fees. Those are all the fees that come into play that this money goes towards to help you not have to bring in any money to the closing table, because there's other things that you could allocate your money for. And I think the biggest thing that I want to state to people, there's always been a debate amongst different groups when they're talking about, well, if they don't have money to bring to the closing table, then they shouldn't be buying a house. That's not true, because there's a lot of families that live paycheck to paycheck. They pay rent. So why would you not want them to own their own home to start building asset value so they can have a savings at some point in time? Because in today's world, at today's prices, with rent going up, you could almost buy a house cheaper than you can for renting, and the rent just keeps going up.
Well, I'll tell you this, Lisa, I did it myself. I looked at, my house is around 900 square feet, or 2 bedrooms, 1 bath. So I started looking around what the rent would be. I am saving myself $200 a month after bills, after electric, all that stuff. After I ran the bills literally on Sunday. I would have lost money. And then, like you said, a family that's renting on top of trying to save for a house that has kids and they're doing, there's no way.
Yeah, there's not. And if you think about today, between the credit reports, your credit has to be here, and then the amount of money you have to bring to rent a place, you have to have first and last month, then you have to pay deposits majority of the time for your utilities because you're renting. So if you're owning a home, sometimes that helps offset some of those deposits, but if you're renting, you have all these deposits, and why would you want to pay somebody else's mortgage when you can pay your own?
That's honestly the best endorsement I could give, is that's what my whole argument was before I even bought my house or looked at it was, well, could you be better off renting? Not really. In my situation, I wasn't. Now everyone's different, and they all have needs. But
yeah, absolutely. Everybody's different, and everybody has different needs. But these grants are in place for a reason, because every community, every county, they want home ownership. It's you don't want to just have rentals across the board. You want to have people take pride in their home, pride in their community, and be able to build their family and their assets.
And now, in your experience, because you do a lot with grants and a lot of these, is the first-time home buyer, is that the most commonly used grant for you in your office, or is there a different one that?
There's a variety of them. So first-time home buyer is called a lot of different things.
Really?
Yeah. So you have first time, the Madison County grant is sort of a first-time home buyer. Then you have what is called an IDA grant, and then you have a down payment and closing cost assistance grant, and they called this a down payment plus program.
Okay.
So all of these aren't necessarily for people that are first-time home buyers. So they could have bought a house, sold a house, and been renting for several years and can come back and utilize some of these grants.
I did not know. Honestly, and this actually won't help me now, but maybe 6 years from now it will, is that if I was doing my own research, I would type in first time homebuyer grant, not realizing.
And you'll get all of these.
Yeah.
You'll get the housing development. You'll get down payment assistance. You'll get Madison County grants. There's first time and non-first time home buyers are allowed. Different grants that IDA has. There's a variety of different grants out there that aren't necessarily for your first time home buyer. So if you think about it, and we're sort of always we try to look at people get in trouble in life. Things happen.
Exactly.
So, things happen. So you're a homeowner, you lose your house, now you're renting, everything's back on track, you're living life great, things are back to normal, you want to buy a house again, you can circle back after you meet the time frame and come back into these grants and utilize them.
Wow.
Not all of them are for first-time home buyers, quote, quote.
That's incredible.
So it's just something to think about when you go through these and you reread them. I pulled some today. There's the IDA grant is a big one that I push a lot. These are also like yours. Tell us about yours. Yours is forgivable.
Oh yeah, that's the huge part of this is guess how much if I lived there it's 6 years, correct?
I think so.
It
Yes.
was 6 years. This is what I like too. When I met with Karen, she gave me a list, and it said if you leave in year 1, you owe us a certain amount of money. You leave in year 2, 3, 4, 5. Well, after the 6, you wipe your hands clean and you're good to go.
Right. So not to scare everybody,
Right.
It's sort of like a second mortgage. When you do these grants, it's sort of like you have a second mortgage sitting there out there. Title can see it if you go to sell your house before the required time that it's forgivable. Title's going to see that sitting there.
Right.
So they're going to know, oh, hey, you have $3,000 of the second mortgage that needs to be paid. So the idea of it is to get people to stay in their house for a long period of time to get themselves established. And then, 5 to 6 years is about the normal for people to go to the next size house. So then by then you're going to be paid off of that and you're going to be able to move on. But the IDA grant has up to $10,000.
Okay.
That can go towards closing costs. They have a forgivable, they have a deferred, and they have a repayable.
Okay.
So anybody
Can I ask a quick question? What's the difference between deferred and repayable? And because those are words that kind of throw me off when I hear deferred.
So when you look at these different programs, and again, I pulled these from the IDA site. The IDA, it's the Illinois Human Development Association site. So please feel free to go out to this website. It's very informative, and look at all of these options. But they have forgiven, so like the IDA Access is forgivable up to $6,000 in down payment assistance, and it's forgiven over 10 years.
Okay.
So then you have the thing with the IDA Deferred. That's up to $7,500, and that's an interest-free loan, and that repayment is deferred for 30 years. So now keep in mind, some of your grants, they do have interest on them. So you really have to do your research between your agent and your lender and find the grant that's going to be ideal for you, because some of them do look at income, some of them do look at the house condition and your credit score. So there's a lot of factors into play. Then there's also the IDA Access, which is repayable. That's up to $10,000, and that's down payment assistance. Again, it's interest free, and you repay due payment over 10 years monthly with that. So there's a variety of different loans out there that can fit everybody's needs. I've used the IDA grant several times. This does not matter what the house looks like.
Gotcha. So the word safe and all that, not to scare anybody, but
right,
you don't worry about that.
So IDA does not look at the house.
Okay.
Madison County looks at the house. So the house has to meet a certain condition to make sure that you get the funding for that. IDA goes based off of you.
Okay.
It's going to go based off of your credit. It's going to go based off of your income. It's to help you with the money. They don't look at the house at all. It doesn't come into play.
Wow.
So IDA can be used for a variety of different things, different houses, different areas. You don't have to, they don't care about where it sits.
I get what you're saying, because you're still going to have to pass occupancy and
occupancy is a requirement and ordinance.
Okay.
per city, so it varies. So
Wow.
certain towns require occupancy, certain towns don't. Like Alton does, Staunton doesn't. You know, Glen does, Edwardsville doesn't, Collinsville does. You know, maybe Maryville doesn't. You know, it's just, it varies. Granite City does. So those are totally separate. Then doesn't have anything to do with this.
So my question, because you still have to have a home inspection, correct? Too, if you're closing, regardless of you're getting a grant,
So
right?
you don't have to have a home inspection.
Okay, I
So-
get what you're saying
Yeah,
now.
you don't have to have a home inspection, but it is highly recommended. Even in our board contracts, it
Yeah.
is recommended to do a home inspection so you understand as the consumer, the house that you're getting, you know what you're getting whenever you're signing on that line. You're not going to have hidden surprises after the fact because you didn't do a home inspection and maybe the seller either didn't know or didn't disclose. So home inspections are not required, but they are desired to have. Occupancy inspections are only required per ordinance per city that requires them. Grants can follow anywhere and can go based on the house or go based on solely income and credit.
I'm just amazed. If you guys aren't following along, I don't know how. Because I had a couple of questions because I went, well, I get this because you got this, inspection. But you're absolutely right because this could be perfect for somebody that knows, hey, maybe he's a carpenter by trade or what,
Yes.
and knows
Yes,
that they
this would be ideal for that.
Yeah.
They know that it's not going to pass the Madison County grant because maybe it has some peeling paint.
Yep.
You know, maybe it has some older windows. But they're okay with that because they can do that themselves.
Makes total sense now.
Okay.
I am picking it. I feel awesome right now because I actually get it.
Good. I'm glad light bulbs come on. So there's a lot to take in with the grants, but they're out there for a reason,
Yep.
and they should be utilized. And the great thing about grants and using a local lender is because they know about these grants. Keep in mind, I'm not going against any lenders that are not local.
Right.
However, there is lenders that are not local that will not use any local grants in our area.
Wow.
So Madison County grant, you have to be an approved lender to use this grant, and you have to be approved Madison County grant inspector to look at that house. So if you have a lender that's say from Texas, I don't know, I'm just making things up.
Don't yell at us.
Yeah, I'm just
Examples.
making things. Contact your attorney. But say you have
Yeah.
a lender from Texas and they're not approved as an approved lender
Makes sense.
for the Madison County grant. Well, then, from my understanding, they can't utilize that grant because they're not familiar with the process
And they're not
how it works.
authorized and approved. Wow.
Yeah, so that's just something to think about. The last grant that I did want to throw in here is this is through a local bank, and I'm going to do just a little plug.
Oh, please do. No, they're a supporter of Riverbender.
because I can. So United Community Bank, UCB Leslie, she is currently, I have a senior buyer. And when I mean senior, This is the first time that I've had a 70-plus-year-old person buy a house. Kudos to this person. She's needing a house, and Leslie and I have been working very diligently. She's on a fixed income. She's wanting this particular house. So Leslie and I have been wrapping our heads, trying to figure out how we can get her into a house because she's on a fixed income. She is a low-income senior person, but she's adamant she wants a house. So she's doing a grant through UCB, and this one is the down payment and closing cost assistance, and this is up to $10,000 that she could qualify to go through. Now, keep in mind, just like with some of the other grants, she has to pay $1,000 of her own money.
And that was the thing with Madison County. Not to cut you off, I am so sorry. I botched
no,
this.
that's okay. You remember.
I completely botched this. You have to pay in Madison County. You got to contribute $1,000 to the purchase of the house
Yourself. You have to invest in the house $1,000. And to people up front, that sounds sort of scary because they're like, I don't have $1,000. Really, you do,
Yep.
because your home inspection is going to be XYZ. Your appraisal is going to be XYZ.
Yep.
Your earnest money
Yep.
is going to be the big part of it at XYZ. So before you know it, check, you're at $1,000.
And just to throw Lisa another plug, if you have a good real estate agent, she'll say, hey, why don't you put $500 in earnest money down, because this is going to cost X, Y, and Z, and it takes you right up. And I was good to go.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, so before you know it, it's not going to take much for that person to invest in their own home $1,000.
Right.
So that's what this down payment assistance with them is, that Leslie and I are working on. And you have to live in the home as your primary residence for this one. Now, some of these other grants, you can get by with having this as not necessarily a primary home. There's other things that come into play with it.
Gotcha.
So, but with this down payment assistance through UCB, you do have to use this as your primary residence, and you can get up to $10,000 grant towards your closing costs and your down payment. So it doesn't matter if you're a young first-time home buyer or you're a senior citizen and you're buying a house because you want a place to live. And I asked my senior, I'm like, wouldn't you rather just go to maybe the Macoupin County Housing or
Yeah.
something like that? And she goes, no. I want to own my own home again. I don't want to be bored. I want to do my work. I want to go outside and garden. I want to do this and I want to do that. So I want to buy this house. And so we went under contract. And
That's a pretty tough sales pitch. I wouldn't have been able to say no.
We're buying a house, and so,
Wow.
but we were able to look at some grants for her, because it is hard when you're a senior citizen. A lot of them are on fixed incomes.
Yep.
So you really have to be mindful for what's in their budget, and you also have to be mindful for the condition of the house and make sure that if it's something that does need to be fixed, she has the resources to do that, which we will make sure of that. But then also make sure that she's not depleting her savings by buying the house, because she will need to use some of that to put back into her house.
Without a doubt. Well, and too, it just shows, again, your commitment to help people find a home. To me, and I hate to sound patronizing, I don't mean to, if you guys are going, all right, CJ, here we go again. But think about this. This is a woman that's on a fixed income. She's not, going to buy a $500,000 home. She just wants to get by and have her own place.
Yeah.
And, and I'm not trying to get, pride, but you aren't going to get a massive check out of this. You're simply
right.
helping a woman just find that house again. And that's why I just love what you do, because you aren't there for the money and dollar signs. You're there for the person.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And that's what it's all about. It's, these people have things happen in their lives. You don't want to necessarily rent the rest of your life, and if it's not a good fit for you.
Right.
Some people it is a good fit. They don't want to have to own a home. They just want to pick up the phone, call their landlord, have their landlord fix what needs fixed, and that's okay.
Completely.
That is fine. But for those people that really want to make sure they stay in their home or they have their home, there's options out there. Wow. I know that you had asked a question about if there's anything to help with renovation grants. So real quick, we're going to touch on that.
Well, can we take real quick, because we're going to go over time anyway. We always do.
Here you
We're
go
already
again.
at 30 minutes.
Oh, I better
so
save that.
let's just keep going, because this is really fascinating. Can I ask you a little bit more about down payments assistance? So whenever I hear the word assistance, it kind of makes the hairs on my neck raise a little bit, and here's why. Because I think that means in 20 years I'm getting hit with a massive interest for the repayment of it. So that's not the case here.
Right. No, that's not the case. Yeah, that's not the case. So now keep in mind, with some of these grants, there is interest, but they're minimal interest.
Okay.
So, but you're paying minimal interest on your grant, and you're also paying interest
on the house.
On your house.
Yes.
So you do have a dual interest situation, but it's minimal. But the key is to live there as long as you're supposed to, and have it go away.
Right.
So don't leave sooner than later, and then you have to pay it back.
It just circles back, before we move on to renovation grants, it circles back to what you said. You have to find the one that's right for you.
Correct.
Just because next door neighbor used Madison County Madison County Housing Grant like I did,
Yeah.
you're probably better off using a UCB
using
or
an IDA grant or a UCB or something like
Yeah.
that. So there's a variety out there for everybody. It just you have to find the one that suits you the best and your needs. And you also have to keep in mind some of them go on your credit against your credit. Look at your credit score. Some of them don't. So there's just a lot of factors that. Education again.
Yes.
We got to come back to that. It's essential that the consumer knows.
Well, like you said, if you weren't talking to your agent and you aren't doing your research, and you go online and you click option 1 and go, wow, that's great.
Yeah.
Well, option 4, 5, and 6 might have been actually better avenues for that individual to go down.
Right, and that's correct. That is true, because it could meet them a little bit better than this first one. This first one was a quick fix. This one here was in for the long haul and actually would have been a better fit.
Without a doubt. And now on top of that, I kept asking Lisa, and I don't know, maybe it was because subliminally I'm thinking, some grant assistance for a nice deck right now would be amazing. And man, I really could use a fence right there for Nico. But now, are there opportunities for
Nico.
Sorry, I was going shopping. Is there opportunities for folks that maybe have some things that?
So I wanted to just touch on that briefly, because there is different assistant programs out there for different classifications of the people. So if you're a veteran, there's programs out there to help veterans. I had a client where they bought a house and they were veterans, and we were able to get them windows.
Wow.
So that was something that, because they were a veteran, there was a veteran program, and they were able to purchase some new windows for their house. Also goes into low income and energy efficient. Make sure your house is energy efficient. Look at the windows, look at the AC, look at the furnace. That's gonna, if you're a low income person, that could help bring in renovations to your home for that. There's so many programs out there that people need to be aware of, and they can get that through their real estate agent that understands the process. Yep. Or they can get through it through, the county, or reach out to, support groups or whatnot. But we want to make sure that's out there. There is also a program out there that is through the Illinois Human Development, I think I'm saying that correctly, Association. I haven't dealt with them a lot, but I dealt with them recently when an older person was just about to lose their home in foreclosure. Wow. And he was able to reach out to this group. It was an emergency grant that was able to come and help him get his payment and past due payments up current, and then they paid 2 months over to help him get back on his feet, and he was able to help his home go in, keep from going into foreclosure. So
that's just incredible. I'm not to cut you off again, but let's go ahead and let me do this one last time, Lisa. I'm sorry. This individual went from having this uncertainty of, living there, I'm sure, in his house forever, and then going, well, tomorrow I might not be in my house.
Right. They were knocking at his door. He was to the point where he was getting ready to be evicted. They went to, the hearing was at the courthouse. This was in Madison County. And so he went to the hearing and was able to stand up there and say, oh, no, I don't, and it all stemmed from back in the forbearance with COVID.
Yep.
So if anybody out there that is listening, if they went through the forbearance back in COVID and they're not sure where things sit with them and their mortgages, please feel free to give me a call.
Yes.
Because I can answer questions. I did bring my little pamphlet for my short sale. I talked to this person about doing a short sale. He's like, no, I am dying in my house. I am not losing my house. Wow. I am keeping it. And so we were able to help him keep his house and get himself caught back up. And that's through the Illinois Housing Authority. So there's a lot of options out there.
Talk about a conversation, though. I mean, when you hear someone say, listen, I'm dying in my house. I ain't selling it. You can burn it to the ground, whatever. But I am going to be in this house when I mean, that to me is just amazing that you were able to, and I mean, it took his part too. It's not just you doing all the work.
Yeah, no, it was education.
Yeah.
It was him coming to my office in Bunker Hill, just out of the blue. He stopped in one day, and I said, look, you have a court date coming up. And he's like, he goes, I don't know anything about it, which he's a senior,
Yeah.
and people get a lot of mail. And you get a lot of mail. I get a lot of mail. And sometimes you don't look at everything.
No.
So I just, with all these grants, it's just, it hits to my heart with all of these grants and options. If you're looking at maybe losing your house, you're not sure what to do, please, please, please feel free to pick up the phone and call us. I will answer any questions about any grants, about forbearance, about anything to try and help you get through the steps.
Well, and what I like about your process too is you don't beat around the bush, because there's always that agent that goes, well, probably not going to qualify, but let me see what I can do.
Yeah.
You're very on. If it's not going to work, you've done this time and time again. Hey, this one's not the avenue for you, but why don't you look into this avenue and see if this is
especially
better?
with some of the houses that we looked at. I was like, CJ, this isn't going to work. This one's not going to work. This one will work. And you got to be upfront with people, and you got to be honest with people, because if not, then it's going to go back to the guy with the question that says, have you ever not closed? If you're not upfront and honest with people, yes, you can get to the closing and not close.
All right, CJ's still talking, but one last thing for you guys to think about before we get back into this short sale remodel and different grants is that if I would have not listened to you, I would have been in a bidding war with 4 families for one house that went $40,000 over asking price. So I would have been embarrassed, number one, because I don't got $140,000 to throw at a house. And then I would have, if I got locked in, what am I going to do? Because you ain't affording this. And now you're going to close after bidding out everybody.
Yeah.
I mean, without you, and I'm not saying you, Lisa, you're a drill sergeant by any means, but just being honest and just saying, hey, I think the house is a nice house, CJ, but let's reevaluate here a little bit.
Yeah, honesty is the key factor. I mean, it really is, because people go in with blinders, and that it's all unicorns and rainbows. Everything's pretty, and it's like, oh my gosh, this is great. I want it. We got to do it. It's shiny and it's new, and then before you know it,
Chaos.
it's chaos. So you got to just bring people back. And
I'm telling you, I'm sold on you. I'd buy another house from you. Buy another house with you, Lisa, and I just bought one. But take me through this. So for remodeling and things, veterans have a lot of opportunities out there. And
there is opportunities out there. Now you have to meet qualifications, like with everything. Again, that's our disclaimer that, there is qualifications that you have to look at that fine print. But veterans, low income, energy efficient, there is resources out there that can help. And if you are a consumer, you own a home, and you're in a predicament where you need something done, please feel free to reach out to a professional that can guide you and take you down those steps, because there is resources out there for everybody.
Without a doubt. And Lisa Webb, before I ask you about the open houses and market, anything else I'm forgetting about?
No,
So,
we covered it all.
We got to be honest with each other here. Well, we always are with each other, but to the folks at home, we kind of had a little bit of let's feel it out and see how this goes, because there's live sitting the schools starting back up literally tomorrow, or today for some districts, tomorrow for all.
For most, And
I think I learned more in this segment, Lisa, than I've learned on any other one. But it's so important for people to know that just because, and I'm sure you get individuals all the time that are too proud for a grant, that I'm not getting
they think they are. They're like, oh,
I'm not wanting help. I don't need any help.
Yeah, but that's what it's there for.
Take advantage of it.
Yeah, that's why it's there. That's why it was formed. And if it's there for a reason. Please feel free to utilize it, because you can use your savings to either keep your savings in savings or use it to maybe make an extra house payment and pay off your loan sooner, or fix things that you need to make it your own, because we all want to make our home our own. So
without a doubt. Or Nico needs dog treats.
Good old Nico.
He's loving that house. I'm telling you what. I'm so glad I got that kitchen table, Lisa, because he goes right underneath that little elbow and sleeps there. That's just a spot.
Oh, so cute.
So for anyone that needs Lisa to help you guys today, this website, dirtstrealty.com, that's the starter. But give a call, 618-650-8787. It's almost like I used her before. I don't know. Lisa, what's coming down the market?
Well, the funny thing is I had several that we could have talked about today, but they're already under contract.
No way. That's awesome.
Yeah, so that I think I just want to stress to people, if you're looking to sell, it's still a good time time to sell.
Yep.
If you're looking to buy, it's still a good time to buy. But I think most importantly, we want to get out to the communities. Call us if you have questions. Don't just not buy a house because you don't understand.
Are you telling me my beautiful house in Bethalto got bought today?
Yeah, that'll be closing the end of the month. So
That's all. I love it, and really just great stuff. One house I wanted to ask you about while you're here, because we only see each other once a month, and then I call.
Yeah.
Is the one in Godfrey that was a little bit.
Whitecliff.
Yep.
Yeah.
Is that still available?
it is. It's a foreclosure.
It is, but the opportunity in
The
that house.
opportunities are there. It's a very unique opportunity, but it is there. It's a bank foreclosure. It needs a lot of love to it, but a lot of foreclosures do, and it's great whenever you end up seeing a house that needs a lot of love, that is given that love, and it turns back into a family home.
For the folks that people would die to live in Whitecliff in this
Yes,
town.
yeah,
This is your I just keep looking at this place going, if only I had some money to put in and invest in this and make it.
But and the good thing about the foreclosures, and like I tell people that call, you're not going to hurt my feelings with an offer. You're not going to hurt the bank's feelings with the offer. So go take a look at it, present an offer. They'll either counter it, accept it, or reject it, and move on. But that one, full disclaimer, it does need a lot of work. So you do have to bring a lot of hammers and nails and screws and the whole 9 yards. But how beautiful would it be if it was fully renovated and back to the way it should be? And with that particular one, like I tell people, the first thing I would do is have a structural engineer look at it and make sure that it's in good standing. And if it passes that, which that's a $500 to $700 inspection, why not?
Well worth it.
Good money spent. If they pass that and give that clear, rebuild it and go from there.
There you go. Lisa Webb and 3rd Street Realty. You can follow along always on demand with 3rd on 3rd with Lisa Webb, or why don't you just go to the website, 3rdstrealty.com, and let Lisa Webb not only help you find a new home, but help your family start that next chapter. Speaking of family, how's everyone doing before I let you go?
Oh, they're doing great.
Good.
Getting ready to go back to school. Yay!
Poor Georgie, summer's over, huh?
Well, Georgie will be a loner because he's 2, so he doesn't
he's
get
not
to
in
go
school
anywhere.
yet. Oh, man. Wouldn't that
He's
be...
going to come play with Nico.
There we go. Thank you so much, Lisa
You're
Webb.
welcome.
We'll take a quick break, and we'll continue the kind of 1-year anniversary edition of the show.
Congratulations.
But you're invited because we're doing a big show coming up at the end of the month. We'll have more details to come. We'll take a quick break. 3rd on 3rd with Lisa Webb, 3rdstrealty.com.